Protect your genetics. Don't let anybody mess with them. This is your body. We've all been working for trillions of years to get the genetics to where they are. So let's maintain them. Let's keep them healthy. Let's keep them shining. Let's keep our hearts full. Let's bring that deepest bliss layer out, that golden Christ child that lives within. Let's share it as we celebrate the culmination of his great work, of all of our great work that we've all been doing in all of our lifetimes. And let's manifest new earth. Hello there, my name is Michael Garber. My partner and I, Ron Amit, are co-founders of a nonprofit faith-based organization called New Earth Ascending. New Earth Ascending is focused on supporting personal and planetary ascension as we're all shifting in consciousness and in vibration towards that new Earth 5D light body reality that we're all holding near and dear in our hearts. And one of our big missions here for New Earth Ascending is to create those cities of light, those sanctuary areas, those educational centers around the world to support those who are awake and aware and growing in their light. So if you're curious about New Earth Ascending and some of the offerings that we have in our mission, you can check us out at newearthascending.org. This is the 4th annual event that I'm a part of here, hosted by Candace Goldman, Beyond Quantum Healing, and the original Quantum Healers Forum. I just want to send a lot of love and a lot of gratitude out to Candace for all of your dedication and devotion towards quantum healing and shifting humanity and this world into higher consciousness. You are doing incredible work, and we all love you so much. So thank you for creating this wonderful opportunity for the global community to connect with one another and explore quantum realms. So we're celebrating also Dolores Cannon's work and legacy. And some of you know of Dolores Cannon and some of you don't. But Candace and Ron and I both are coming from the lineage of Dolores Cannon's work. Dolores created her modality quantum healing hypnosis technique and worked with people for several decades, exploring consciousness and working with the higher consciousness beings that are supporting this work. She also wrote, I think, 19 books before she transitioned, and her organization is still alive, still active, and still teaching the method exactly how Dolores did. So we're just sending a lot of love out to Dolores and all the forms that she's still here on the planet with us physically, through her writings, through her students, through the teachings, and through all the non-physical ways that she's still supporting this grand shift. So from that lineage, my partner and I created our own version of quantum healing that we call Illuminated Quantum Healing. Illuminated Quantum Healing is an alchemical method of transformation and awakening that incorporates energy healing, meditative practice, and hypnosis skills to activate instantaneous, multidimensional healing through a client's connection to their higher self. What makes IQH unique to the other modalities that are out there? I think a big one has to do with the Eastern philosophy and the Eastern psychology information that we're putting out for our practitioners as we're training them, also giving them galactic history. So they're going into their sessions understanding more or less the time frame of events that have happened since the beginning of creation, and also in the Milky Way, and also in Earth, and also stuff that's, you know, potentially coming down the line, so that they're going into these sessions really aware of possibilities, potentials, and probabilities of the sessions. Whereas if you're a new, you know, quantum healing practitioner and you go in and you don't know all this stuff, a lot of it's going to be really strange at first. I know it was for me, and I had to go through a lot of religious deprogramming and cultural deprogramming, because what was coming through my clients was so different than and also very similar to my religious upbringing as a Methodist Christian. So I'm really excited to talk about the things that we're going to talk about today, because I'm going to talk about the things that have been revealed through the sessions and some of how it matches up with some of the biblical references. And so some of you may be coming from Christianity. Some of you may have been like against it. And so hopefully what I'm sharing today will show you the brilliance of what that Judeo-Christian lineage brought in. And you can take take what feels good and leave the rest. But there's some powerful things that I'll share with you today. And just be aware of if things move in you in a way that feels good, and also notice if there are thoughts that immediately push back against it, because those are the places that we want to become more curious so that we can understand where that reactive energy is coming from. So let me see what else. Just wanted to share also that Illuminated Quantum Healing is not only a method that we're doing, but we also train other people. So if you're interested in learning more about becoming an IQH practitioner, you can go to newearthascending.org, or you can also go to www.source.energy and check out our platform, our social network platform, which also has our course on it. That's where our course lives. You can also check out the Embodied Light course that's there, which is more of a personal healing course, an ascension course. So let's see how we're going through. I want to also share that I don't normally pre-record videos, so this is really a different feel for me. I'm used to doing lives, and I usually can feel everyone's energy. So it's a little different to be recording this without that. So hopefully it's still just as powerful and impactful, and that you can still feel my heart. So we have about an hour, and I'm going to try to get through a whole bunch of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about some of the information that came. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the DNA. We're going to talk about ascension. We're going to talk about some of the stories that have come in through the hypnosis things, how they may or may not tie up with some biblical things. And of course, we're going to talk a whole bunch about Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And then I'm going to take you on a guided journey to meet with Yeshua and see what he wants to share with you. So I hope you'll enjoy that. So one of the first sessions that I did where my client was somnambulistic, which means that was a term coined by Dolores, meaning that this client, when he was really under. His consciousness was not there, and I was speaking directly to the aspects that he was being regressed to. And so for this one, he went back to right at the beginning of creation. And as he was explaining this, he was saying that we were all there. We were all in this primordial soup, this energy that we can't even comprehend right now, because it is pre-form. It is pre-manifestation of creation. When we were all there, just starting to get really excited that we could split ourselves up into a whole bunch of parts, and then lose ourselves and completely forget ourselves, and then over time begin to pull all those parts back as we would remember and start to integrate and come back to the full remembering of that one self that we are. And we can talk about that as a flow of ascension and descension, that all of life, all of creation, all of the universes, all of the galaxies, all of the life forms are constantly moving in and out of this state that is moving towards greater and greater glory, greater and greater harmony, but is in this arc of ascension and descension, and these little waves and these curves of this, of how creation is. So what he described as an explosion of energy, a big bang, if you will. And after the explosion of light, individual forms of consciousness began to develop. And these forms he called the Elohim, the first creators, the first creation of Source, before all of the other forms of creation started to be developed. And what he said was that Source sent out all of the Elohim to create, and said, go out, create, learn, and to create everything so that it's moving towards greater harmony and greater balance. Some of those Elohim were given the positive polarity, meaning that they were conscious, that they were an aspect of Source out creating in alignment with Source. Another group of Elohim were what we would consider negative polarity. They had this veil put over them, and they felt like they were separate from Source, and they were permitted by the Source to go out and create with that type of mentality. Now, that's a little bit different than saying that the angels fell, or that there's, that there was some type of schism that happened. I don't even know if that's the right word. I think that might be the first time I've ever used schism in my life, but we can see that right away from the beginning, the separation was intended. It was blessed. It was part of the creation. And part of the reason why that was done was so that, it's quite boring when you're one thing, always aware of itself. It's much more fun and much more exciting to forget and bump into those parts of yourself that are completely asleep to their true nature, and so that those parts can interact with each other and create conditions that are fertile for growth, fertile for ascension. Yeah, so each of those beings would get to learn and grow as they interact with each other, and of course also the creations that they created. So that's going to take me to the first that's going to bring me up into the Milky Way and the history here. So here in the Milky Way, the first, do I even want to go with that first? Well, yeah, we'll talk about this, sure. So the first humanoid, so 2 arms, 2 legs, with a head, torso, that kind of thing. The first humanoid forms make their way into this part of space around the constellation of Lyra, or Lyra, however you pronounce it. So when people talk about these feline beings, these cat beings, these cat people, some people may have seen them in their dreams or in visions, or feel like they're connected to them. So there was this gorgeous, gorgeous planet that had so many different types of life forms there. It was like a paradise planet. Meanwhile, there were other species also living in other planetary systems in the area. And this is specifically like in the region of Draco, where we have the Draconians, which I believe eventually create the reptilian race. Well, they are reptilian. There's even another group called the Karens that came before that created reptilians through a process of combining dragon DNA and reptile DNA together to form this powerful being that the Karens could use as an army to go out, service to self, negative polarized, species, going out to dominate and take over other planetary systems where there are maybe there's positive polarized beings, such as the beings of Lyra, that were these very beautiful beings. This is actually in Lyra, we see the 144,000 oversoul angelic beings. So when people talk about the 144,000, this is really going even as far back. I mean, the number can be a lot of things, but we're speaking about the 144,000 oversouls that were in the system of Lyra. So those oversouls, I'm kind of going to go around because it's so much to try to bring into one story. But so the oversoul, let's say I have a body, and the core of my being is my soul. That soul is one filament, one emanation of many over many different time periods, many different places, that create this larger energy, this larger consciousness, which is the oversoul. So there's 144,000 of those out in Lyra that eventually are the first oversouls that create the first species here on planet Earth. But I'm jumping around probably a couple million years here. So there are some beings there. So now we've talked about the reptilians, the draconians, the Karens, the feline beings of Lyra. We also have the beings in Sirius, and we have the beings in Orion. So there was this major war between factions of humanoid beings, factions of reptilian beings against, let's say the Lyrans. And because they wanted to take over, they wanted to dominate, they wanted to infiltrate the consciousness of the Lyran beings, which the Lyrans were not going to have it. They were not going to be doing it. So a long war happened between many different star nations. That went on for a very long time, which eventually culminated to a point where this beautiful paradise planet in Lyra was destroyed. And some people have memories from this. Some people have dreams of it. A lot of people that were on that planet, souls that were on that planet, still even carry the radiation from how that planet was destroyed. It was a radiation technology that actually exploded the planet. This has come up in several clients. So then we also have the Andromedans that are out there. So refugees from Lyra eventually went out and populated other planets. And so we see the Lyran species and the Lyran consciousness starting to spread to different parts of the Milky Way, and starting to share and create hybridized species of these Lyran beings with Andromedan beings. So basically what ends up happening is the genetics, the DNA of all these different species start being fused together, start being spliced in together to create new species. That's the power of creation, of creating organic life, is through the DNA. And so basically what ends up happening is these intelligent star nations start working with the DNA a little bit to shift it and change it so they can create new species to help create greater harmony in different environmental systems. We'll get it more into the DNA here in a little bit. So at a certain point, the idea, so we have Source, we have the Elohim, we have the other types of light beings as well. We have the angelic and the ascended masters and all that kind of stuff. But there came to a point where many of these different star nations and many of the different higher energetic beings, Elohim, ascended and angelic beings, things like this, decided that it was time to start creating a physical vessel that they could descend into a physical body and have access to their higher consciousness and be able to explore their creation from within it. And so a variety of tests were done, different trials, let's say, to create what eventually becomes this pure, incredible Adamic human race. I've jumped forward a little bit again. Let's go back to the Earth. So there is planet Earth. Planet Earth is, let's say, getting past its cooling phase, past its volcanic stage. It's graduated now, and it's ready to start taking in organic life. And so I have two clients that describe a very special ceremony that happened where they used a citrine crystal and embedded it into the rock of the planet to activate the life force energy of it. I had another client that described the ceremony as the graduation ceremony of Gaia, as she had just, gone through different ascension processes in her different forms that she had throughout time and space. And it was now to the point that she was ready to ascend into her next type of life form, which would be to be a planet and to hold energy and to hold life. And so they describe the ceremony of water being poured in from the higher dimensions onto the planet, and this big celebration as life was beginning on this new planet, Gaia, planet Earth. Some people call it Terra. I'm sure that's probably not the language that was used at the beginning. I doubt they were speaking English or Roman languages, but so we start to see the beginning of planet Earth. And what was happening on the Earth was many of these different star nations that I described before started to bring their favorite plants, their favorite animals, their different creatures, different forms of life to the Earth, to plant, to grow the garden, to seed the Earth with life. My clients describe themselves, one of them described herself as this giant being of with blue wings, blue feathers, that was tending to the earth, flying over it, making sure things were going well. And I have many, like a handful of over these last few years of clients describing this same exact thing, either being on a spaceship and bringing medicine, like medicinal plants, or watching as the first civilizations were being developed. So Earth was part of an extraterrestrial thing from the beginning, and ultra dimensional and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different beings that started this and have been tending this garden, watching over it since the beginning. And so let's see, where do we want to go from there? Hope you're following along, because I'm just rattling off a whole bunch of stuff. There's so much that has come through. So there hasn't been a lot of focus in my sessions of civilizations prior to Lemuria. Some of you may know of Lemuria, some of you haven't heard of it before, but what my clients do describe is the first real high civilization where we see the Adamic human being on the planet, like the pure light form body of a human. We see that mostly in Lemuria. So I would imagine before that there were a bunch of trial and error of different species that they tried to play with the DNA a little bit just to see, okay, these conditions work better for that type of genetic. This doesn't work so well. Da, 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 da. The original human being was designed to be disease-free and to live for as long as it wanted to be. Remember, this is like Earth was like vacation planet. It was the place where the angelic beings could come and explore paradise through a physical body. But a lot of clients describe this dark cloud descending onto the planet. Some describe a meteorite coming down and bringing disease, bacteria for the first time, introducing it into the experimental container of Earth. So basically, they were playing with all these genetics, trying to make this really resilient being that could stay in that powerful connection, and then use that connection to create as an extension. Remember that first directive that was given to the Elohim that is still dropped down all the way until it gets to the human. We're part of that lineage. That is the human being's lineage. Okay, so let's see where we go from Lemuria. So the waters begin to rise. The earth changes from time to time. She shifts, she changes. She moves her forms around a little bit. All of this is being designed by the divine, coordinated by the divine, when it's time for the experiments to shift a little bit, when it's time for a new era, a new thing, a new idea to be inserted and played with. Gaia will go through some shifts and changes. And so that started to happen at the end of Lemuria. And eventually, you know, those different species move about the earth. Some went into the earth to have civilizations within the earth, still there, still operating, still thriving, still praying for humanity from within the earth. Then we move to the time period that many will call Atlantis. Now, there were a few different stages of Atlantis, a couple different arcs, you know, curves and valleys and all that kind of stuff with Atlantis. But what was really going on in Atlantis was this experimentation with separating consciousness. So the human being was in a unified consciousness, was super connected. But they started to play with it. What would it be like if we could separate it a little bit? What if we could induce an amnesia of some kind? So they were playing with different experiments. There were other star races there on the planet at the time as well. There were these different ideas being introduced to humanity that had never been introduced before. And so some started to shift into more towards that negative polarity, that service to self, while others remain in that service to all connection. And eventually those experiments got way out of control, and the experiment tried to be saved by a lot of different beings incarnating on the earth, and eventually it just wouldn't work, and the whole system collapsed. And the DNA of the human being went from a 12-strand, fully illuminated, powerful Adamic being to what most people would, you know, we look at the cave people or the Neanderthal, things like this, these types of humans. We see that type of disconnection and primitive human being. So that's actually later, you know, down the road. Our original form was much, much more powerful, the Adamic form at least. So that experiment, they're still trying to rectify the damage that was done there. We had the major drop in consciousness, we lost our connection, all that kind of stuff. And so different things have been done to slowly build humanity up back to the greatness that it once was. And so I had clients describing, I want to say, was it Pleiadian beings? it's been a while, but beings coming to the earth after the ice age, like many, many, many hovering over the earth, waiting for the ice to melt so they could come into the earth and begin teaching the remnant species that were left after the ice age. That's part of the other thing with the earth changes too, is that those that are in connection are guided to places of safety, while those that are, messing around in sleepiness, they, they exit the body, exit the earth. And the remnant, the ones that are protected, the ones that are, the part of the species that they want to keep, the higher consciousness guides them to places of safety. So once it was time to come down and teach, these beings came in to teach humanity, teach them about connection. And we see these in stories of the white buffalo calf woman, the teachings of the Aboriginal people and their connection to the Pleiades as well. But we start to see this boost in the genetics. And if we look at those pictures and of the monkey up to the man, it's not quite like that. But those jumps that we see are when higher dimensional beings, star nations, whatever, as part of that divine plan, come in and shift and change the DNA a little bit, boost it up. So that's why we see those big jumps in development. Okay, so moving forward, then the next high age that we have is in Egypt. And in Egypt, we see the building of the pyramids. So the pyramids, as has been described to me by various clients, was a system of many different groups working together to put down that grid for the planet, for higher energies to come in, and that's the pyramids. So clients describe beings telepathically moving all of the stones together very, very quickly to build the pyramids. I have a client standing at the top of the Great Pyramid with other beings, and they're placing this higher dimensional capstone on the pyramid to emanate all of this energy. They also took it off so that nefarious beings couldn't get to it, and that's already waiting for us in the New Earth reality, supposedly. So we also have star beings coming and teaching about ascension, teaching about connection, teaching about manifestation, teaching about magic. So we see this big renaissance of consciousness happening during the times of Egypt. Now, what this also does is it lays down the foundation for the one that's going to come after that, the master of light for this planet, Jesus, Yeshua Ben Joseph. So I had a client that was describing being at one of the pyramids. This is before Jesus was born, and he was being told by one of his teachers that he needed to go and record some of the resurrection rites so that he could give it to this child that was going to be born soon. So a lot of people don't understand that Yeshua's birth on this planet there's a lot of preparation for that. Many different lifetimes, many different beings preparing the earth to get ready for a soul like Yeshua to come in to do the work that he was doing. Once he got here, there was a whole team of higher dimensional beings that had incarnated in human form to guide him, to protect him, to ensure that he was safe, that he was getting everything that he needed to complete his mission. So when we see Yeshua Ben Joseph come into the scene when he's being born, Mother Mary at this point knew that she was going to be bringing in this child. There were different initiates in Egypt that had taught her. She had been studying in Egypt that had prepared her for the conception of this child. And so as Yeshua comes in, clients describe this dimensional tear that ends up happening and this ship coming out, this big light ship that had many, many, many different higher consciousness beings on the ship that were bringing Yeshua's oversoul and Mary Magdalene's oversoul on the ship. And so clients describe the high frequency environment of this child coming out with all of these loving animals, with all these non-physical beings around as the Christ child comes into this world. Okay, so he comes in with this brand new energy, this super clean genetic. He comes in with the repaired genes, this next boost of genes for humanity. So he was quite open right away from the beginning. Not only was he very open, but he was quickly moved, and we see this in the stories of the Bible. He was quickly moved. He had to get out of the area because it wasn't safe for him and his family. And a place had been provided for them in Egypt that was a high frequency environment where he was immediately being taught how to connect, how to work with energy, how to do all kinds of powerful esoteric practices so that he could do what he was going to be doing. And then it comes to a point that he meets Mary. So they actually meet when they're very young, in their teenage years, maybe even a little bit younger. I don't know the exact age, but they were quite young, both of them. At this point, he'd already been studying with masters. He'd been around highly conscious beings and da-da-da-da-da, where Mary was not. She went the other route. She was born into density. She was living in density. She was around density. And so the woman that I worked with that regressed into Mary's life describes like a very discombobulated mental realm inside, very insecure, really tormented by different things, scared of things. And Yeshua comes into her life and they fall in love very quickly. And he begins to share with her and they begin to practice together. And he begins to guide her back into her power and helps clear out all of the dense energies. And they begin to travel together right away. And they're teaching and he's performing miracles and all this stuff is happening and crowds are beginning to gather around them, and it gets to the point that they're having to flee in the middle of the night because you've got crowds of people following them everywhere. You've got the authorities at different places that don't like these two teaching these far out ideas of liberated consciousness and God lives within you and all that kind of stuff. It's not good information to share with people if you're wanting to control them. So they end up living in Egypt for quite some time, and they have a home there. And Mary Magdalene is training in the Egyptian high, temples with Mother Mary, who is high priestess, central force of the priestesshood, and they're working with groups of women and they're channeling star energies and they're working with ultra dimensional beings, and they're doing very powerful magic, very powerful esoteric work at a very, very young age. They're also traveling together. They're taking this knowledge and they're taking it out on the trade routes. So a lot of people don't know that Yeshua had a very rich uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, and probably other people that supported them going around and teaching and sharing and connecting with people. But they were also doing grid work. They were also laying down the grid for what the earth is going to be doing, what it is doing now. Oh, Jesus and Mary. We have resurrection stories. I have two clients sharing the same story of being in a temple with a dead calf, a dead cow, and they're standing around this fire. Mary's there, Jesus is there, and they're calling on the holy names of the divine, and this calf comes to life. And we see this again. I have a few other stories where Jesus, it seemed to be a thing he could do quite easily if it was appropriate for that soul, was to call it back into the body and to reanimate it, or to even shift out the older denser soul and to call in a fresh portion of the oversoul, so that that body didn't have to die. It could still be used within the divine plan. So some really cool, powerful, magical stuff was going on there. Something else that was even going on that isn't talked about too much is the bloodline, the children of Yeshua. The child that's talked about the most is Sarah. Sarah was conceived like conception, just like Yeshua was conceived through Mary. Sarah eventually continues with the teachings and the priestesshood and takes that out into Europe and wherever else she ends up going. Haven't focused too much on what happens in her life. I know that she did fall in love and get married, but we also learn about 3 other children. I think 2 boys, and then one that is an intersex hermaphroditic being. So it had both reproductive organs of a male and a female. And this powerful being was a prototype so that they could explore what it would be like to have a human and a high frequency soul in this new type of embodiment. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe there's going to be in these next years to come more children being born like this. I know that there's definitely a lot more androgynous souls on the planet right now, especially in the youth. But they had this really unique soul and this really unique body that they guided. These children were trained in the esoteric arts. They were trained in Qumran, in the Essene community down next to the Dead Sea. And I mean, and Jesus and Mary were their parents, so I'm sure they got plenty of teachings and transmissions through them. Yeah, let's see. What else wants to be shared about them? I could talk about them for a while. Can also talk about Judas. A lot of people think of Judas as the bad guy, but again, every soul on the planet has their destiny, has their thing that they've agreed to do, within their soul group that incarnates at the same time. Everyone has their different roles. So Judas's role, devout disciple, student of Jesus, his role was to turn Jesus in, and Jesus knew about this. They discussed it. They talked about it before. And at the Last Supper, clients all talk about this one guy, Judas, who gets upset and leaves early. Mary's scanning because she knows it's one of them. Somebody's going to be turning him in. She didn't know exactly who it was, but when she does see him, she does recognize that this is the guy. So these disciples they were all learning the esoteric arts. They were super telepathic. They worked with hands-on healing. They worked with natural and herbal remedies and all that good stuff that the New Age community now is reinvigorating and has been reinvigorating for a while. Oh, so Judas actually played a huge part. If he hadn't had done what he did, the rest of the story wouldn't continue on the way that it did. The resurrection probably, wouldn't have happened the way that it did. So blessings to Judas for playing that character. Let me see. That might be enough for Jesus and Mary. Yeah, I think that's enough for them. And maybe let's see, where else do we want to go from there? I also have a client that was the mother of Moses, that describes having this really special child, which she takes and puts in a basket and floats down the river. She said, and I didn't get too much more about this, but she had talked about a twin being already there, or that there was two of these beings. I don't know. I want to explore more of that story, but there was a bit about Moses. There was also more about Moses once they left Egypt, that it was a wife, I think it was Aaron's wife. I'll have to share the recording, but basically what she was sharing was that Moses and Aaron had an intimate relationship, sexual relationship. They loved each other, but it was very secretive. And so the wife kind of knew about it, but that's a little surprise, isn't it? Okay, I think it's enough biblical stories. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to share about that. I think that's enough. I think we can see that the stories from the Bible, there is truth there. There are codes in there that are accurate. And of course, there's been a lot that's been distorted and whoever wrote it and all that kind of stuff, but there is a lot of truth there. So I really encourage and hope that people can not completely disregard Christianity or Judaism or the Holy Bible, but actually see that there's a pretty good and accurate telling of the history of creation through those texts. But of course, there's a lot of other stuff in there too. And let's talk about discernment now that we're there. We're at that point, because that was huge for me. Reading the Bible growing up, there was a lot that I didn't agree with. It didn't feel right. It made me feel all kinds as a gay male, you can imagine. And so I had to leave. I had to go and search and look for the truth. And so I'll share with you some helpful tools to help you understand what discernment is, and how you can grow in discernment and use it to navigate these times and to know what's true, what's not, what's helpful, what's not. So I want to talk about, prior to awakening, discernment is through conditioned mind and instinctual drives of self-preservation, sex, food, and sleep. So let's get into that a little bit more. We're going to look at the 5 bodies. So we have the physical body, we have the etheric body, your pranic body, if you will. We have the mental body, we have the intellectual wisdom body, and we have the bliss body, the deepest layer, the true nature at the very core. So the physical has the 4 drives, like I said, of self-preservation, sex, food, and sleep. So before somebody's awake, their body, their discernment is being, and I'm quoting discernment because it's a really low quality of discernment. It's like, can I make a baby with this person or not? Should I eat that or not? Should I go to sleep or not? It's that kind of base survival stuff. And then if we look at the conditionings of the mind, we're also factoring in right or wrong through a duality system that's been passed down through our parents. It's not necessarily discernment of the heart, it's evaluation through duality and judgment. So to really be able to discern through the heart, we have to drop into that 4th body, the intellectual wisdom body. It's the Vijnana Maya Kosha in the Sanskrit traditions. So how do you get to the Vijnana Maya Kosha? Jesus talks about this when he says to clean the robes to prepare for the next garment of light. And what are the robes? It's those 5 koshas. So the physical body. Need to clean the body, you need to purify the body, eat the good foods, drink the good water, get it exercise, all that kind of stuff, get it to rest. When those things are being taken care of, the physical body and its urges aren't as loud because you've balanced that physical sheath. Let's move into the etheric layer. So the etheric, the flow of energy. If you have blockages in certain areas, you're going to make different choices than if your energy was unbound, free-flowing, and moving, right? Like you wouldn't be able to go do that because I don't feel good, I'm tired, da, 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 da. So even though your soul knows it would be really good for you, because of the heaviness of the energy, the stagnation of the energy, the lethargy in the body, those kinds of things, you're going to have your ability to discern is going to be clouded with those things. And if we look at the mind, if we look at all those stored beliefs, the stored programs of, from your family, from your religion, all that kind of stuff. And then again, it's not really truly discernment. It's just piggybacking off of all of the other stuff that's ever happened to you, or your grandmother or your grandfather, or, something you heard about in church or down the street, gossiping with somebody else. All of that stuff begins to react and cloud your ability to see things and really discern it in a way from here. It's all coming more from the mind at that point. So then we come into that wisdom body. How do we get to the wisdom body? Well, we have to purify also the mind that's before that. We also have to purify the energy. We also have to purify the physical body so that we can drop into that part, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is the layer of our body that receives information from our true nature. So that deepest core of ourselves sends signal out. And you'll get that through imagery, instinct, gut instinct to do something. You might hear something. So all those clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant, all those psychic abilities start to come online more once those 3 bodies are purified and cleaned and cleared, and you've started to have a meditation practice where you're going in beyond the physical body, beyond the energy, beyond the thoughts, into that deeper part that's witnessing everything and relaying that information back to your true nature. And your true nature is sending information out into that witnessing part that's broadcasting images into your mind so that you can receive it, and then it moves energy, it guides you to start moving your body in a different way, to act a different way. So that's going to be one of those things where you have a first impression of something. The first impression, that first boom, that's the Vijnanamaya Kosha communicating what your soul, the bigger part of you, sees, but maybe the small part of you doesn't see quite yet. So you get that first impression. What tends to happen then is the mind, the conscious mind, the ego, all of that conditioning thought begins to wrestle with that information and discount it, discredit it, tell a story about it, ignore it, all of that kind of stuff. So when people are talking about discernment right now, is it coming from the mind, the duality stuff, or is it coming from a place of deep knowing, deep resonance? It should give energy, information that is coming from the Vijnanamaya kosha has energy to it. It inspires you. It gives you the energy with the information to do what you need to do. Whereas the other one, the duality base, wrestling around with stuff, coming from the mind, actually ends up making you more tired, maybe panicked, stressed out. The stuff from your deepest layer comes with love, comes with peace, comes with clarity. It's like profound clarity all of a sudden. So if you've ever had those aha moments, that's coming from that layer. And we've got to purify those first three layers so that we can get to that. How do you purify the physical body? You all know that. Eat well, detoxify, da da da. Etheric layer, getting your energy work, saging, laying of hands, breath work. Breath work's going to be the good one. Pranayama practices. Then we move into the mental body. How do we develop the mental body? We do mantra, using the sacred sounds, the vibrations to break apart all of the conditionings, all of the distortions in the field. How do we work and connect with the Vijnanamaya kosha? This part is also the place of our ethics. That knows what's good and best for all, that knows what's good and best for you and your path, that kind of thing. That's training the mental body to focus on the higher thought forms, meaning reading sacred texts, reading, studying the holy words, reading things of the ascended masters, reading the words of Christ, reading the Pista Sophia, Keys of Enoch, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Heart Sutra. I mean, there's so many different traditions with these higher thought form texts that can help one train their mind out of mundane, like kind of bottom below consciousness into a higher consciousness that's dropped in and refers to that deepest part and uses that to discern what's good, right, best, and true, all that kind of stuff. And then once we're also connecting into the deeper layer, into the bliss layer through acts of service and devotion. So karma yoga, through bhakti yoga, songs of devotion, being in celebration and devotion to the divine, finding ways to be in stillness, emptiness. And what we do as a spiritual aspirant or a person who's consciously trying to ascend, who's wanting to discern what's good, what's right, what's best for my path, we go into that stillness, into that place of devotion, into that place of service, and we bring that out into the next layer. And we inform that with more information about ethics and being nonviolent and non-harming and honest. And we take that part and we let that translate into the mind, and we let that translate into the energy until it becomes our embodiment, till we are walking as that bliss layer, as the intellectual wisdom, as that law that lives within the heart. We become that. So when Jesus says, I am the law, I am the light, I am the way, it's because he is totally locked into that place, and he is shining it out into all of those layers, and he's speaking to that in each person. He's not speaking to their conditionings, he's not speaking to their physical body, he's speaking to that core part, and he's calling it forward, and he's using the parables, he's using the teachings to let people feel it. It stirs something awake in them, and it brings it out. That joy comes out. And so that's what he was demonstrating, and that's what he was teaching all of us to do, was to deeply connect, go into the heart, and to bring all of that forward to share with the world. And that once you're really got your mind focused in there, you can be in the world, but not of it, because you're of the true nature. You're in the true nature. So that's a practice that you might want to think about, or look up the koshas, Also look up samskaras, Samskaras. These are going to be some good keys for you to support your awakening and help you to discern, because there's a lot of stuff out there right now with the things on the TV, on the screens, all the messages, all the stuff that's being broadcast right now. I'm not going to get into it because you all know what I'm talking about. When you have really developed those deeper koshas, then that stuff, you're impervious to it. All of the manipulation tactics that are being used, all of the propaganda that's out there won't mean anything to you, because you are anchored into your true nature. No matter what people are throwing around as the new cult fad, the new idea, the new language that you're supposed to be using to be politically correct, you could use it if you want, but It doesn't have to define who you are and what you think is right and good for you. That comes from in there. Okay. So that was a bunch of information. And now I feel like we should do our journey. So I told you it's going to be a lot of information really quickly. So why don't you go ahead, take some deep breaths in. Let's let you feel that stuff. Let it settle in where it was. I don't even know what I said. Hopefully it was meaningful and coherent and all that. And just use your breath to sweep through and to let anything settle in where it needs to. Let it clear anything that it needs to clear. And let's go ahead and make a comfortable spot for yourself to lay down. We'll go on this little journey. So as you're laying down, I want you to take your breath with you, meaning as you shift and as you move and as you get into your settled place, I want you to use your breath and lay down. And as you lay down, as you make yourself comfortable, as you let your body become heavy, just allow your breath to sweep through, clean, clear, and revitalize your whole system. As you're breathing in and out, allow your thoughts to be swept away like clouds in the sky. Allow your exhales to become deeper as you drop deeper into relaxation. Deep, long breaths. As you go into that part of yourself that's witnessing the breath, that's witnessing the movement of energy, that still small voice deep within yourself that guides you, that loves you. And feel into your heart, into the pure love light that you are, and breathe into it. Allow the breath to amplify the light that you are. Allow the breath to bring this beautiful light all the way through you and even beyond you, so that you are completely surrounded by this beautiful golden white light. This golden white light will stay around you the entire time that we're working together. You can call upon it at any time throughout your life to help you feel safe, guided, and protected. Let us invite all the guides and teachers of love, light, and wisdom to join you in this bubble of light, to begin working with your energy, to open you for this transmission. I also want you to know that as we're working together now, you won't hear anything that will bother you in any way. All sounds are healing sounds, and they'll fade into the background so that you can easily focus on my voice and easily focus on the information you are receiving. All is well. All is well. Now I would like for you to go back in time to a special memory from a special trip or vacation. I want you to go to the first memory that comes to mind from a special trip or a special vacation. Notice what comes to mind. What kind of place is this? What's happening there? Do you know how old you are? Are you alone, or are there others with you? What are the emotions that are there? You are back at this special vacation, this special trip, re-experiencing this time and place. Very good. Close that scene. Take a nice deep breath in, and as you exhale, relax twice as deep, twice as relaxed. Very good. Now let us go to a memory from a birthday. Let's go back to a memory from one of your birthdays. Be there now and see what's happening at this time and at this place. Notice the first thing that comes to mind. Where are you at this birthday? Are there others there, or are you alone? Feel into the emotions of that memory. What does it feel like there? Very good. Close that scene, taking a long, deep breath into your body, and as you exhale, relax twice as deep, twice as relaxed. And now let us go to another memory of a meal that you've eaten recently. We're going back to a meal that you've eaten recently. Be there now. Notice where you are. Notice the first things that come to mind. Maybe you can taste the food. Maybe you can smell the food. Notice what kind of place you are. Very good. Close that scene, relaxing very deeply as you breathe in and breathe out. It's very good practice. This is the part of the mind we're working with, the part that has the imagery, the sensations, and the memories. All you have to do is trust what comes to mind and relax. Very good. Now I'd like for you to imagine, sense, and feel that you are standing at the base of a large hill. You're standing at the base of a large hill with a path that leads up the hill. Go ahead and begin taking a journey up the path that winds up the hill towards the trees at the very, very top. As you walk up this trail, you weave past bushes and trees. Maybe you can hear the sounds of the forest or the sounds of your feet as you walk up the hill towards the trees at the top. You've now arrived at the trees at the top. You're within this grove of trees, walking through the grove of trees. And just beyond the trees is a large field of grass that is open, with the sun shining brightly on the field of grass. Walk through the trees towards the meadow and step out into the meadow now. Step out into the field now. As you look across this field, as you see across this big grassy meadow, you see the trees on the other side, and you know and you feel that Jesus, Yeshua, is there within those trees. And now he begins to walk out. Look over and you can see him appear now. You can begin walking towards each other now as he beams all of his love and all of his light in your direction. Maybe you can feel the excitement that you both share as you come closer to one another. Jesus is now there, and he has a gift for you inside of a box. He pulls out the box now so you can see it. What does the box look like? What does the box look like? Trust what comes to mind. Now open the box and you'll see the gift that he has inside. Open the box and see what is inside. Jesus will now explain to you what the gift is for and how to use it. Listen to him now. Very good. Now Jesus has a message that's just for you. You can't always hear him so clearly, but now you have the chance. So listen to his guidance now. Very good. Now Jesus has a message for the collective. Jesus now has a message for the collective. Listen to his message now. Very good. Now Jesus is going to share some energy with you. He's going to share some energy with you while I do some light language, some sacred sound transmission for you while he shares this energy. Go ahead and take Jesus by the hands, and he will share this energy with you now. Ramkuan Hansrahid Kanasto Homich Tinsteheniata Riakahum Mukonich Notamenial Handeteasna Maria Mukunch Nehenis the Hit Klahanuno Ariana Keniaste Ramundukush Namahatikitins Lahand in Matakuma Mamukuma Hani Manikish the Hendakula Matai. Thank Jesus. Thank him for this information and for this transmission. Bless him as he blesses you as you make your journey back down through the meadow, back down the path. As you go back down towards your body, it's going to be much faster now going down than it is going up. You'll easily be able to remember the gift, the meaning of the gift and how to use it, the message for yourself and the message for the collective. As I count to 5, you'll be back in your body, fully awake, fully charged, ready for the next phase of your life. So come on up. 1, moving your fingers and toes gently as you breathe deeper into the body, breathing deeper and getting the blood moving as you're waking up now. 2, beginning to move even more as you wake up into this body, moving it around more, bringing that joy with you, bringing that inner light with you as you come up into the body. 3, hearing the sounds around you, becoming aware of the room as you come up into the space. 4, almost there, feeling really good, really good. And then 5, eyes open, wide awake, looking good, feeling good. Wonderful. So I'll give you these next little bits to write down whatever you'd like. If you want to put it in the comments of this video, that's great. You can also send me a message if you appreciated the work at michael@newearthascending.org. And I'd love to hear what Jesus's messages were for you, or what the experience was like for you. I also really recommend that you check out the newearthascending.org website, so that you can learn about the IQH system, the practitioner training, embodied light. I have a book coming out with so much information. I have 5 books actually coming out with lots of things, lots of client sessions and stuff like that. So stay tuned. I have so much to share. I know this is a lot that I gave to you today, but I know you can handle it, and you got what you needed from it. And find me on social media, Michael James Garber. Also our Facebook group, New Earth Ascending community page. Just sending a lot of love out to all of you out there. Protect your genetics. Don't let anybody mess with them. This is your body. We've all been working for trillions of years to get the genetics to where they are. So let's maintain them. Let's keep them healthy. Let's keep them shining. Let's keep our hearts full. Let's bring that deepest bliss layer out, that golden Christ child that lives within. Let's share it as we celebrate the culmination of his great work, of all of our great work that we've all been doing in all of our lifetimes. And let's manifest new earth and become a people of light in a bright, beautiful, crystalline genetics. I have so much hair standing up, so it must have been a good one. Thank you, Jesus. Bless you all. And we'll talk soon. I love you. Enjoy. Hope it was fun.